5. Installation of antenna and feeder system. Antenna and feeder system is an extremely important part of BTS transmitting receiving system. The standardization of installation and operation and the construction quality of the project will directly affect the operational performances of the whole system. The installation of antenna and feeder system include the following major points. Antenna installation, outdoor distribution of feeders, preparation of feeder connectors, feeder lead-in and connection of lighting arresters, preparation, distribution, and binding of indoor jumper wires, connection of the jumper wires from the antennas to the feeders, installation of grounding clips of the feeders, sealing of the connectors. 5.1 Project preparation. Before the installation of antenna and feeder system, project preparation should be performed. It includes the preparation of installation personnel, check of site, environment, and safety measures. 1. Installation personnel. Installation personnel should be those who are very experienced in the installation of antenna and feeder system, or the approved personnel after training. The personnel for overhead operation should have the related qualification certificate. 2. Check of safety measures. 1. Construction work outside antenna and feeder room should be arranged on clear and calm days. To ensure the construction quality, do not perform the construction on a raining or snowing day. To guarantee the safety of a construction personnel, installation of antennas and feeders is prohibited on a storm day. 2. Safety belts and harnesses are required for the personnel working on the tower. Personnel for the installation of antennas and feeder system should wear protection caps, and the installation team should be equipped with first aid facilities. Personnel on the tower are not allowed to wear loose clothes and sleeping shoes, and have binding up bandages with them. 3. Remarkable signs should be set up on the construction site to warn the unrelated people away. Tools that are prone to fall down should be safely handled. Those are used temporarily should be put into tool bags. The tool bag should be closed right after use. 4. When climbing up the tower, those with tools should climb up ladder, while going down first when going down from the tower to prevent the tool from falling down and injuring people. 5. Check the rigidity of antenna support to see if it is able to support antenna installation. 5.2. Installation of the individual parts of antenna and feeder system. The installation of the individual parts will be described separately in the sequence of the project installation. 1. Preparation of connectors. Preparation of connectors is a very important work during the installation of antenna and feeder system. Its properness and correctness will directly affect the operation performance of the antenna and feeder system. The connectors are prepared by referring to the construction book delivered for connector preparation. The following will mainly describe the preparation of connectors of the common and jewel feeders and jumper wires. Preparation of a jumper wire connector. 1. Take out the construction book for the connector preparation from the connector packing box and get familiar with the preparation process. 2. Make the required tools ready and put them in a convenient place. 3. Cut the proper length of the jumper wire according to the project construction drawing. 4. Strip off the outer conductor at 7 mm away from connector with a fast cable cutter. The cutting surface should be flat and smooth. 5. Cut the skin of the cable at 28 mm away from the connector with a fast guarded knife. 6. Remove the plastic foam and adhesives with a guarded knife. Be careful not to damage the inner conductor. 7. Taper the inner conductor with a file or sharp-nosed pliers and brush off the residues with a brush. 8. Place the plastic sealing ring and apply grease on the ring. 9. First screw the fixing nut onto the cable and then fasten it with a wrench until the plastic foam of the cable is expanded. 10. Mount connector cap with 2 wrenches. Note, screw the connector cap with the front wrench while keeping the back wrench not moved. 11. Measure the connector with a multimeter. 12. Heat the heat-shrinkable T-bush with an electrical blower. 13. When the preparation is completed, test connector again. Only when it is qualified without any error can it be put into operation. Preparation on feeder connector. 1. Take out the construction book for the connector preparation from the connector packing box and get familiar with the preparation process. 2. Make the required tools ready and put them in a convenient place. 3. Straighten the feeder to be connected with the connector and start the preparation. 4. Cut the feeder with a fast cable cutter. The cutting surface should be flat and smooth, and on the wheel peak of the feeder. 5. Cut the skin of the cable at 51 mm away from the connector with a fast wire cutter, and then strip off the skin of the cable with a guarded knife. 6. Place a plastic sealing ring and apply grease on the ring. 7. Mount the fixing nut and the spring washer. 8. Brush off the residues with a brush. Expand the outer conductor of the feeder with a fast stripper. Note, if the connector is rough, make it flat and smooth with a file. 9. Mount the connector cap. First screw the connector cap onto the fixing nut with your fingers, and then fasten it with 2 wrenches. Note, screw the fixing nut with a wrench at the back, while keeping the wrench in the front not moved. When using the fast cable cutter, hold it in the middle and the rear part and turn it counterclockwise to cut. Be careful not to use too much force. 2. Installation of encapsulated window. 1. Place the encapsulated window in the installation position and position the installation holes on the wall around the window inside the equipment room. 2. Drill the holes with a proper diameter with a percussion drill. 3. Fix the main plate of the encapsulated window with expansion screws and bolts. 4. The sealing pad and sealing gland can be mounted when leading feeders into the room. 5. Holes of the encapsulated window are sealed when leading feeders into the room. 3. Antenna installation. Antennas are divided into directional antenna and omnidirectional antenna. The common directional antennas include a signal polarization antenna and double polarization antenna. An antenna body is packed up separately from its mounting and fixing devices for shipping. Before installing the antenna, it is necessary to assemble it by referring to the antenna instruction book. During antenna installation, pay attention to the following points. 1. The antenna should be installed in the protection coverage of lighting rod. 2. When a single polarization antenna is used, the range of the receiving antenna should meet the requirement for diversity reception. For M900, the diversity range should not be less than 4 meters. For M1800, the diversity range should not be less than 2 meters. 3. The horizontal distance between antennas in different sectors should not be less than 0.2 meters, depending on their isolation requirement. 4. The distance of the antenna protruding out of the iron tower platform should not be less than 1 meter. An omnidirectional antenna should be at least 1.5 meters away from the tower body. 1. Installation of omnidirectional antenna. The installation of an omnidirectional antenna is simpler. Pay attention to the following points. 1. For angel omnidirectional antenna, remove the water leakage screws at the bottom of antenna by referring to the antenna instruction book. 2. Make the antenna feed point downward. The top of the protection cover should be at the same level as the mast top, or a little bit higher than the mast top. 3. Be sure to keep the omnidirectional antenna vertical when installing it. 2. Installation of a directional antenna. The environment for antenna installation includes typically roof mast and tower platform, etc. However, the installation mode and the procedure are basically the same. 1. Pre-installation of antenna fixing devices. The accessories, antenna fixing clamps, and adjusting devices of the directional antenna can be installed down the tower. According to the practical installation, it is possible to assemble the antenna with the tower jumper wires and seal the connectors down the tower, and then hoist them up to the tower. There are typically 2 fixing points in the directional antenna. The upper fixing point is also used for adjusting the elevation angle of antenna. The lower point is used only for fixing antenna. 2. Hoisting of antenna. Hoist the antenna and all the accessories such as tools, safety belt, tower top amplifier, jumper wires, joints, various tapes and binding belts, etc. with a rope and pulleys up to the platform on the tower. Put them in a place where they are not easy to fall down and take adequate safety measures. Hoisting can be done with the cooperation of persons up and down the tower. During the hoisting, be careful to prevent antenna from hitting the tower body and pay special attention to the safety of personnel. 3. Prefixing of antenna. Determine the installation direction of antenna according to the project design diagram. Fix the directional antenna to the trunk of a support and fasten it properly so that it can bear the weight and withstand wind. It should not be too tight to damage the protection cover of the antenna. 4. Adjusting of the antenna azimuth angle. Design azimuth angle according to the project design documents and determine the azimuth angle of the antenna with a compass. Normally, the north corresponds to sector 1. Turning clockwise for 120 degrees from the north is sector 2, and turning clockwise for 240 degrees from the north is sector 3. The azimuth angle is adjusted according to the project design document during the installation. Turn the antenna slightly to adjust the azimuth angle until the design index is met. Fasten the lower fixing clamp of the antenna until it stops and cannot be moved by hands. Note, keep the compass away from the iron tower and other steel or iron objects, and pay attention to any ground magnetic abnormality which can interfere the accurate operation of the compass. 5. Adjusting of the antenna elevation angle. For a directional antenna with the installation hole corresponds to the elevation angle, it can be installed directly according to the installation hole. But the post of antenna support should be strictly vertical to the ground. Other antennas are adjusted as follows. Determine antenna elevation angle with the angle meter. Move the antenna slightly to adjust the elevation angle until the project design index is met. The error is required not to be larger than 0.5. Fasten the upper fixing clamp of the antenna until it stops and cannot be moved by hands. 6. Precautions. During the whole installation, pay attention to the safety of personnel and equipment. During the installation and adjustment of antenna, be careful to protect the installed jumper wires from being damaged. 4. Feeder distribution. 1. Feeder cutting. Determine the length of feeders of each sector according to the project design drawing. Cut the feeders with 3 to 5 meters longer than the designed length. Alternatively, hoist the feeder in position, leave a sufficient length in the lower part and then cut it. After a feeder is cut, level it at both ends and in the middle to facilitate the feeder distribution. Note: it is forbidden to bend feeders with a small angle and prevent vehicles and people from stepping on or screen them. 2. Hoisting of feeders. 1. Normally, prepare the connector at one end of the feeder down the tower or on the tower. 2. Paste the engineering level about 1 meter from the feeder end. 3. Make a buckle at the position 0.4 meter from the feeder end and make another buckle at the position 4.4 meter from the feeder end to facilitate the pulling of feeder by cooperation of persons up and down the tower. Note: if the feeder connector has been prepared when hoisting feeder, wrap the prepared connector with tape or another soft material to protect it from being damaged when it hits the tower body. 4. When feeders are hoisted onto the tower platform, 1 for 3 fixing clips or 1 for 1 fixing clips can be used according to the requirement. Fix the upper ends of feeder in the proper position. They can be fixed at multiple points to prevent them from falling down from the tower. 5. Precautions. During hoisting, while the operation is forbidden to avoid damage to the feeder skin. During hoisting, pay special attention to personnel safety. 3. Feeder distribution. 1. Mount feeder fixing clips about every 2 meters along the tower or the wide distribution frame. Normally, 1 for 3 fixing clips are used. 1 for 1 fixing clips can be used when required specially. 2. Arrange the feeders neatly from antenna to the place before entering the room. 3. Place the feeders in the fixing clips according to the label. After they are tightly arranged and tightened, the fixing clips should be vertical with the feeder. Do not bend them. 4. When distributing feeders, follow the principles below. Design arrangement of feeders according to the sector requirement of the project design, and determine the arrangement and lead-in plan. 1. Make a column or a row for each sector. The arrangement sequence should be in consistence for each column and row. 2. Feeders should not cross with each other when running along the distribution frame or down the tower. 3. The minimum bending radius of feeders should be no less than the value 20 times of the feeder's diameter. 5. Connector processing. 1. If the outdoor work cannot be finished in one day, connectors or exposed feeder ends should be processed for waterproof and moisture-proof after feeder distribution. 2. For feeders with their connectors prepared, they should be protected in a simple way during feeder distribution. 5. Leading of feeders into the equipment room. It is performed according to the preset plan for feeder lead-in. 1. Lead each feeder into the room through the encapsulated window. During the operation, pay attention to safety to avoid feeders from being damaging the indoor equipment. This operation should be done by special personnel. 2. Cut feeders to the accurate length according to the location of a lighting arrestor required by the design. No error is allowed. 3. Prepare the indoor connectors from feeders. 4. Connect the feeders with the lighting arrestor. 5. Finally, seal the encapsulating window with tape or glue mud. All unused holes should be sealed. Note: feeders should not be across or overlapped when being led into the room. Water blocking band should be made by feeders outside the encapsulated window to prevent water from entering the room along feeders. 6. Connection of antenna and feeder jumper wires. 1. Water blocking band should be made when connecting jumper wires with the antenna. 2. Connectors of jumper wires and antennas should be processed for waterproof. 3. Try to keep jumper wires straight and avoid unnecessary bend. Note: bend a jumper wire naturally. The bending radius is required to be more than 20 times the diameter of the jumper wire. Outdoor jumper wires should be bound with the black binding buckles delivered. All binding buckles should point to the same direction and cut with 5 to 10 mm allowance to prevent them from falling off when the temperature changes. 7. Processing of antenna and feeder connectors. Connectors of antenna and feeder system mainly include connector between the antenna and the jumper wire, connector between the jumper and the feeder, connector between the feeder and the lighting arrestor, connector between the lighting arrestor and the jumper wire, connector between the jumper and the cabinet top, and the connector between the jumper wire and the tower top amplifier if the tower top amplifier is configured in the system. To ensure the normal operation of the system, all connectors should be connected securely. Waterproof processing is required for the outdoor connectors between the antennas and the jumper wires, the outdoor connectors between the jumper wires and the feeders, and the connectors between the jumper wires and the tower top amplifier. Waterproof processing. 1. 3 types of adhesive tapes are used for the waterproof processing: semiconductive autolytic glue tape, autolytic glue tape, and PVC insulation tape. 2. When wrapping a connector with a waterproof tape, do it from the bottom to the top, then from the top to the bottom, and finally from the bottom to the top, totally for 3 layers, and with each turn overlapped by the next turn for about 1/3 of the width to prevent water penetration and leakage. First wrap it with semiconductive autolytic glue tape for 3 layers. Then wrap it with autolytic glue tape for 3 layers. Finally, wrap it with PVC insulation tape for 3 layers. When winding the tape, stretch them with some force to ensure the waterproof efficiency. 8. Installation of an anti-lighting system for antennas and feeders. Lighting protection of antenna and feeder equipment is implemented through the lighting rod mounted on the antenna support, anti-lighting clips on feeders, and the lighting arresters serially connected to feeders when entering the equipment room. 1. Installation of lighting clips on feeders. The installation of lighting clips on feeders can be performed together with the distribution of feeders. Normally, there should be at least 3 lighting grounds for the feeder, which are within 1 meter after the feeder is down from the tower platform. Within 1 meter before the outdoor wire distribution frame when a feeder is distributed from the iron tower, before the feeder entering the equipment room. If the antenna is mounted on the mast on the building top, the grounding points are located within 1 meter after the feeder is down from the mast, before the feeder is down from the building top, and before the feeder enters the equipment room. Note 1. If the outdoor distribution of feeder is very short, it should be guaranteed that the feeder is grounded in 2 places. That is, one feeder is down from the mast and before the feeder enters the equipment room. 2. When the length of feeder on the iron tower is more than 60 meters, lighting clips should be added along the feeder. Typically, 1 grounding clip is installed for every 20 meters. 3. If the level distribution of feeder is more than 20 meters, a lighting clip is required in the middle of the level distribution section. The procedures for installing lighting clips are as follows. 1. Prepare the required tools: paper cutter, flathead screwdriver, and sharp nose pliers. 2. Determine location of a lighting clip. Cut the feeder skin at the location according to the clip size to expose the outer conductor. 3. Wrap the conductor of the lighting clip to the outer conductor of the feeder closely, and fasten it tightly with a screwdriver to ensure the adequate contact of the lighting clip with the outer conductor of the feeder. 4. Make waterproof processing and sealing of the grounding point with the same method as that for the antenna and feeder connectors. That is, wrap it for 3 layers separately with semiconductive autolytic glue tape, and PVC insulation tape. Five. Lead the grounding wire of lighting clip to the grounding point of the wire distribution frame and connect it securely. If holes for installing lighting clips are available on the tower body, connect the leads of the lighting clips directly to steel plates of the tower. Normally, there is no proper hole for connecting the lead of the lighting clip in the wire distribution frame. The grounding clip base can be fixed to the tower body or the outdoor wire distribution frame with the help of the feeder fixture base, and fix the lead of the grounding clip to the feeder fixture base. Typically, the ground wires of lighting clips before the feeder enters the equipment room are connected to the outdoor grounding bus bar. They should be arranged in good order. 6. Precautions. The grounding wires of lighting clips should be laid from up to down with the included angle to the feeder no more than 15 degrees. The leads of the grounding clips should run smoothly. Do not bend them sharply and stretch them tightly. Anti-rust processing is required for the connection of a grounding clip with the grounding point painted with anti-rust paint or coated with anti-rust glue. 2. Installation of lighting arresters. As feeders are required to be cut off at 800 mm to 1500 mm after they enter into the room, the location for mounting the lighting arresters is relatively fixed. During site installation, it should be performed according to the project design drawing. All lighting arresters should be mounted, facing the same direction and connected securely. Be sure to check if the type of lighting arrestor matches its purpose and pay attention to the installation direction of the lighting arrestor. After connectors are made when feeders enter into the room, the lighting arresters can be connected to the feeders. A lighting arrestor is marked with the equipment end and the anti-lighting end. 9. Connection of the indoor jump wires. Indoor jump wires are prepared as follows. Cut the jump wires according to the length from the cabinet top to the wire distribution frame, and along the wire distribution frame to the lighting arresters. Prepare the connector at one end of the jump wire as required on site. Prepare the connector at the other end of the jump wire when it is distributed in position. Requirements for distribution and binding of jump wires. 1. Jump wires from the cabinet top to the wiring frame should be distributed tidily without crossing. 2. Jump wires should go through the inside of the wire distribution frame to the upper part of the wire distribution frame. Do not distribute them outside the frame. 3. Jump wires should not be bent too much. The radius is recommended to be more than 20 times the diameter of the jump wires. 4. Jump wires should be laid from the cabinet top onto the wire distribution frame properly without too much tension. 5. Jump wires should run in parallel and neatly on the wire distribution frame. 6. Bind the jump wires on each crossbar of the wire distribution frame with buckles. The buckles should point to the same direction and be cut smoothly without a sharp head. Note: when the connection of the whole antenna and feeder system is completed, a test is required with antenna and feeder analyzer to verify that the standing wave ratio of the antenna and feeder system meets requirement. VSWR less than 1.5. 10. Engineering labeling. Engineering labels are classified as label for power cables, label for trunk cables, label for indoor jump wires, label for indoor feeders, and metal label for outdoor feeders. Among them, RX stands for receiving, TX for transmitting, and TRX for combined transmitting and receiving. Recommended location of labels. 1. At both ends of feeders. Place labels 20 centimeters from the connectors at both ends of a feeder. 2. Before feeders enter the equipment room. Pair labels 20 centimeters from the feeder window. 3. 20 to 30 centimeters when feeders are down from the tower platform. 4. Label indoor jump wires on the cabinet top. 10 centimeters from the jump wire connectors. 5. Label power cables 2 to 5 centimeters behind the wire lugs at both ends. 6. Label trunk cables 2 to 5 centimeters behind the SMB connectors at both ends. Metal labels are used for outdoor feeders and bound to feeders with black buckles. The black buckles should face the same direction and have a 3 to 5 millimeters allowance. All labels should be arranged in good order and easy for viewing.